First of all, I think that the library is one of the biggest buildings, cultural buildings in the world. And then Snøhetta starting its practice, starting this office on the background of a huge culturally important building in the Middle East, it is quite a statement and really set the tone for the whole of this office. It was a fairy tale. It was beyond belief that we could win it, and beyond belief, certainly of many people, that we could actually build it. So the fact that we were pushing the boundary, we were building the dream already right from the getaway, the get-go, we were doing this sort of project. We didn't start by doing your friend's villa or somebody else's hut or the little commercial building down the street. We started with the biggest, the most important cultural institution in the world.
I think the most or the happiest moment I had was actually last year when we went to Egypt 20 years after, or actually it's 30 years since we moved there and 20 years after the opening. Because that was so emotional, seeing the project being used, and even I've been there so many times. I've seen it so many times in use as well. But when we now connected with the people working there, it was very, very emotional, very touching. And I can feel that I get emotional now because it was really, really something different. And it was such an amazing, let's say, a finalization of this project. Because when you work on these big projects, and there are, of course, always problems. The construction site is always difficult. It's fantastic and it's difficult at the same time. And then you want to have a little distance to the project. But coming back and having those amazing moments we had with the people working there, that was definitely my happiest moment in the project.
I always thought that when we remember this process and remember the project, I think we should mention everyone. I think that's so easy to forget very important people with big roles or small roles in a project like this. So when one make history like this, I think it's important that when you work on the history that everyone is remembered and everyone is mentioned, because so many people did a really great job. And I feel bad mentioning Craig, because he was not the only one. That it was on the top of my mind when you asked me about that. But I think it's really important that we struggle to remember everyone in this journey of making an archive for the Biblioteca Alexandrina.
The Library of Alexandria project was it is a fairy tale. And then that we would win that competition and get the chance to actually build that building, the whole thing was a fairy tale. Snøhetta's story and our history and our sort of philosophy. This thing that's a dream in a way. It was really important for me personally as a young architect then to be involved in that fairy tale, be involved in making that a real piece of architecture. And it, of course, went through many phases, many periods, here in Oslo, down in Cairo doing the design, and then on the building site in Alexandria. All of them really fascinating in their own way. The building itself is full of so many different people, different personalities. The story of the design was also full of so many people, so many personalities we got to interact with in different ways. Certainly, I think that project has changed the status of architecture in Norway, lifted it an awful lot. Very relevant today. It continues to be relevant in the work that we do and the work that people want us to do and the reputation that this company has. It's all about public space, and that becomes more and more interesting as we progress. The interest in the building in Asia, for example, now is huge. People love that building. People love the spaces and the gestures that gives back to the city. It's more than just a library. It's not just a place to store and read books in. It's a place to create a cultural community. And that's why it's relevant today. It has embodied in it the same values that you'll find across the street here at the Oslo Opera House, for example. Its relationship to the city, its relationship to the skyline, and the extent of genuine public space. So it's certainly affected all of our work since, and I think has become a reference point for very many people around the world as to how to work with that sort of space, how that sort of space can be relevant for the wider community, the city, the neighborhood, the communities, and that architecture is much, much more than just a function, things to solve, a private entity. It is actually a public discipline. It's about public space, whether that's inside the library or out in the plaza or out in the city of which it is a part.
Så et av de sterkeste minnene jeg har, er en tidlig morgen inne i ørkenen. Vi hadde dratt inn dagen før for på jakt etter brudd, som var inne til veggen. Og vi dro med 3 jeeper, tror jeg, og en gjeng, med mat og vann og alt, og inn mot helt Upper Egypt, mot Sudan. Det var varmt, altså det var 56 grader, tror jeg. Altså, du kunne stekt et egg på panseret på bilen. Men neste morgen, tidlig om morgenen, så hadde vi gått ut og hadde en kopp te. Og så kom det, han som på en måte var vaktmester, eller som drev det lille huset vi bodde i, et jordhus, nydelig lite jordhus. Han kom ut i åpningen, og så stod han liksom i åpningen, en nubisk mann da, med en hvit sånn galabeia og et sånn turban på hodet. Og det bildet av han, den gule sanden og den blå himmelen, det har brent seg fast på netthinnen min.
There's one more story I think it's unique and special, and it's about Christian Brystad, the sculptor and the artist. On this trip, we had to see quarries in the middle and south of Egypt. We were just starting, we had parked the cars, and we were supposed to climb the mountains. And we were talking about snakes and all that, and suddenly there came a man on a camel, and he just came to us and said, "Camel ride?" And the Egyptian said, "No, there's no time for camel ride. We don't want the camel ride." And then Christian Brystad said, "How many people are here? You know, this guy offering us a camel ride in middle of nowhere. How many customers, you know, come here? Of course we should have a camera ride. It takes 5 minutes. We will have a camera ride. I'm first." So he took a camera ride, 10 pounds to the guy. He was so happy. And I said, if Christian is having a camera ride, I will have it too. So I had one, and no one else. That's it. So the Egyptians thought that, well, we finished, we can walk now. And then the guy said, he had a tent if we were hungry. And the Egyptian said, "No, we are not hungry. We are not hungry." Christian said, "Yes, I'm hungry." So we went to this, it was just around the corner. They had a tent, a woman and children. The fireplace was on. And they made this beef stew and freshly baked bread. So Christian and I, we sat down. I think Jorunn also sat down. Don't remember exactly. And it was so many flies. It was so hot. It was pretty awful, but at the same time, extremely nice. And this guy was so happy. He was not eating. He was just looking at us. And we were trying to get the flies before we had. And this was all because of Christian Brystad, being a very, very kind man. And he made sort of 5 times Christmas Eve for this family because we paid for the food also. And like he said, who's the customer out here? And why are they here? Egypt is full of things like this.
I was thinking about how brave the office was at the time. If you say, if you take the whole group, those who were leading the project at the time, and they just made this decision that we were going to move. Let's move. Let's say 12, 14 people, or how many we were. Let's move to Egypt. Let's do it from there. And this was way before internet, way before easy connection, way before, oh my God, it's almost like when the old missionaries went on a ship and sailed for months never knew if they would ever see their families again. It wasn't exactly like that, but compared to today, it was really a fantastic challenge and a fantastic decision that the project leaders took. And I think it changed the life of many of us.
I think we've discussed a lot over the years about whether we undertook the design in the right way. I think it was inevitable that we did it the way we did it. I say that the project really is a fairy tale. And I think it was inevitable that we moved the office down to Egypt to do the design. And we started off doing the design from Oslo, and actually that was pretty effective. We arranged meetings with the Egyptian consultants. They would come up, we would go down, and everything was quite effective. We thought moving the office down to Cairo would be the most efficient possible way to undertake the design. Probably it was the opposite. It made things much more difficult. So if you're looking for pure efficiency, we should have stayed in Oslo and just made effective trips down, made decisions, come back up, done the work, get it done. But living down there, working every day, 9 to 5 with the local team, gave so much more, I think, and so much more insight into what a building in Egypt is about, how it can work, how it can relate to the users. So I'm very glad that we did it that way. Probably not the most efficient.
Jeg, som da var Snøhettas eldstemann og hadde en del erfaring fra byggeplasser ulike steder i Norge, så fant Snøhettas styre ut at de ville sende meg på det som ble 3 måneder i en veldig kritisk overgangsfase også. Og dernest så var jeg vel nedom litt sånn høsten 99, jeg tror kanskje 3 ganger sånn litt raskt. Men det var de 3 månedene der. Og den gangen så ble situasjonen ansett såpass viktig av Snøhettas styre at jeg sendte rapporter som nå du har. Første omgang ukentlige rapporter, og der har du 2 eksempler på den type rapporter som jeg sendte rett og slett til Snøhettas styre, for det at jeg var nødt til å ikke nok med å få byggeplassen til å fungere, men det var rett og slett hvordan egentlig bemanningen? Bemanningen ikke minst av Snøhettas kontor på byggeplassen i en vanskelig fase.
There are so many good memories to choose between. And I think overall it was the good group we traveled with. We were a mix of singles, of couples, of families. We brought 3 kids all together with us down. Tiny, they were babies. But the most important thing was, for me, the good experience was to be this almost family group within, or in a quite, I wouldn't say difficult situation, but a challenging situation. and we had lots of fun. We had lots of, lots of experiences of good things. We created a lot of good memories together. I think being as a young woman, wasn't that young, but quite young. I think that was just it was an advantage, not a disadvantage. I wasn't a threat to anybody. I don't think any of us actually were a threat, but the Egyptians, they like to joke and flirt and, be happy and have a good time. So I think that was definitely an advantage to connect to these, because these were usually older men, and they were proud. They knew what the project was going to be in the end, and they wanted to show their best skills, their best plans, their best, So I would say that I can't remember a single time when being a woman or being young was a disadvantage in Egypt.
It's really difficult to pick out the best memory, because there's so many memories, and many of them are really good. It's one of the best times ever, I think, in my life. The main reason why I asked to be a part of the Snøhetta team was to work on this amazing project. But of course, and I brought my family, my ex-wife and my 2 kids, lived in a different place than the others in the team. So for me, it was also a family experience with very many good memories. My children learned to walk and talk in Cairo. So it's difficult. But from the project, I have several times thought about a study trip we made to Hurghada and to Aswan with the stone cladding team, where Jorunn Sandnes was in charge and the artist for the whole project. But we were supposed to go to the south of Egypt and Middle Egypt to see quarries and pick out stones for the stone wall. And we went there, a big team. In the middle of the summer, it was, I think, May or June, if I remember it correctly. Driving in Toyota Land Cruises, and it was extremely hot. We went and went to see, I think it was Dave Smith from Schumann Smith. It was Jorunn Sandnes. It was Christian Brystad, the artist that followed us, and it was Arne Johansen from Johansen Granit in Skjeberg, and Egyptians. And after some beautiful days in Aswan, we went to the desert in these land cruises, and the temperatures were above 50 degrees Celsius. And it was just so amazing to see people work in stone quarries in such conditions. I tried to pick up some tools, and it was too hot to hold, and the guys sat there day after day, and through the Egyptians we asked, how long are you here? Why are you here? And they were there 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off, and he said, I'm here for the salary. It's really well paid. I'm sure it was not well paid, but for him it was well paid. And that's just struck me that, the Library of Alexandria, he would probably never be there or see it, but he was part of this really strong and important part of this really strong project that the world admire. And this guy in the desert, really impressive. On this trip, we were just in and out of the cars, which had the air condition, of course, so we were not really bothered by the high temperatures. And when the Egyptian project manager proposed that we should eat lunch in the desert, is it possible? Yeah. So we came to this cabin they took off one of the walls, opened a little window on the other end, and it was shadow inside and sun outside, and suddenly we had a breeze through the box, and we had a lovely lunch in the desert, all of us. One of my best memories, I think.
Prosessen med steinveggen, så var jo jeg delaktig allerede fra konkurransestadiet. Jeg hadde da et statsstipend i Mexico og kom og møtte gjengen i Los Angeles vår sommer 89, og vi var jo en gjeng som satt i en leilighet og tegnet konkurransen. Og da brukte jeg jo min erfaring med rapporttenking i stofftrykk på å lage en liten skisse som jeg gjentok rundt den store fasaden. Og da satt jeg på UCLA, og på biblioteket der, og kopierte og klippet og satte til en collage som skulle bli til den utvendige veggen av biblioteket. Å lage et kunstnerisk uttrykk tar lang tid. Akkurat da så var det det jeg brukte tida på når vi var der, og liksom prøve å få til et uttrykk på veggen. Vi bestemte oss tidlig for at det skulle stå noe der, men hva skulle det stå? Og etter hvert så ble det bare mer og mer tydelig at det kunne ikke stå noe spesielt. Det måtte være en collage av det vi mennesker har satt ned av tegn gjennom historien egentlig. Så det begynte med kileskrift og alt det oppover mot moderne språk. Og vi hadde jo bestemt at det skulle være stein. Så etter vi da vant, så begynte jeg å tenke hvem kan hjelpe meg med å oversette min skisse til stein, og da kom jo Christian Blystein.
Favorittminne, det er jo på en måte flere ting da, men der hvor en tok ut stein, selve bruddet, det var jo langt syd. Og det var jo nesten helt ned i Sudan. Så det var vanskelig å komme inn der, så vi måtte jo reise da, langt med bil. Og vi kom inn i et ørkenområde hvor det var utrolig varmt. Vi kom inn i 52 varmegrader. Og der jobbet jo folk da i støv og borret og stod på for å få ut blokk. Det var egentlig Arne Johansen som skulle ha hånd om eller oversyn med blokken som skulle ut. Men det var med der en gang, og det står for meg som sånn enormt, dette prosjektet med å få ut så mange 100 tonn eller 1000. Å være der nede, det var på en måte motsatsen av å gå på Finnmarksvidden i 50 kuldegrader. Jeg vet ikke hva som er farligst, men der er det noe som jeg aldri glemmer. Ja, hele møtet med Egypt da, at den kommer ned der hvor hvor vi skal få hugget ut selve platene når de er kappet opp og saget. Og det var en flott gjeng med nubiere som ganske unge folk som skulle hugge. Det var et veldig bra møte fordi vi hadde jo litt flaks da når jeg kom, fordi at de prøvene de hadde gjort, de hadde de slitt med, fordi at det var veldig strenge krav til hvordan disse skulle være, hvor det skulle ikke være noe svarte tegn eller noe i stenene, så de skulle være helt rene. Og dybden på relieffene var lagt ganske dypt. Så vi måtte jo da gå en runde til og så prøve å justere dette for å få det til sånn at de skulle greie å hugge det. Og det resulterte jo at vi fikk et veldig godt forhold til disse her, og så hugget, for de trodde vi kom og frelset de, liksom. At de kunne greie å gjøre jobben. Og siden så ble det jo veldig godt vennskap med disse som skulle hugge der. Det ble bedt hjem og sånn til middag i familien og sånn. Det var fantastisk fint. Det er sånne gode minner fra hele oppholdet der.
Selvfølgelig så er det jo også helt ekstraordinært å jobbe i et land som Egypt var den gangen. Mamdouh Hamza hadde, som jeg sa tidligere, holdt seg litt i bakgrunnen, og Snøhetta hadde vært langt fremme tidlig på 90-tallet, men når bygginga kom for alvor i gang, nemlig min periode, så skulle det skje et sceneskifte hvor Snøhetta ble viktigere, hvor Hamza var litt mer sekundær, tross alt. Ian Thompson het han. Han var en ganske klok mann. Han var leder etter hvert for Balfour Beatty, og han ble en viktig mann for meg. Og så var det den som hadde alle tekniske entrepriser på Snøhetta. Han het Halava til etternavn. Jeg husker faktisk ikke fornavnet på han. Han var en veldig fornuftig fyr, altså. Han hadde alt med elektro og VVS og etter hvert også himlinger, lettvegger og så videre. Det var jo forskjellige entrepriser alt sammen, men han hadde oversikt over de tekniske entreprisene. Og det å få Snøhetta til å fungere som en del av et større team, det var en av de viktige utfordringene jeg hadde. Jeg hadde god støtte i Jack Anderson og i Mr. Halava. Det var jo også sånn at Snøhetta hadde kontraktsfolk, og de hadde også unge egyptiske arkitekter som var under opplæring, jeg tror det var 5, i min periode, fordi at de skulle etter hvert begynne rom for rom å godkjenne eller ikke godkjenne endelig rommene, kvittere ut rommene, som vi sier. Det var liksom på den ene siden, altså en utpreget og forståelig grad av amatørisme der, og språklig også, og så var det et ganske komplisert Snøhetta som ikke hadde egentlig noe mellomskikt. Altså, det var Christoph Capellar som var en av, ja, det vet du kanskje, men han var jo en av gründerne som deltok opprinnelig på den der Los Angeles-saken.
We had a test period for the furniture on site in Alexandria. The test furniture was shipped to Alexandria to figure out how long it would take to have a container of furniture go through custom clearance and also the length of the freight. But that actually went fairly well. I think the organization behind the library and also the Egyptian government saw to it that it went smoothly through the customs. And we mounted the test furniture on 3 different sites in Alexandria, in lobbies of 2 museums and in the organization behind the library. And that was to test how the furniture also would cope with the different climate. It was hot and humid in Alexandria, of course, compared to Norway. But the custom clearance went very well, and the main delivery of the furniture also went very well through the customs. So that actually went really smooth.
The design of any building is full of problems, challenges, if you like. That's what it's all about. There are so many people involved. There are bound to be conflicts. There are bound to be challenges. Alexandria was certainly no different in that respect. I think the most interesting, of course, was the cultural challenge. We're coming from Norway, Europe, interacting with most of the designers and the client and the users who are Egyptian, and how that played out at different times during the process, and our ability to actually engage with a different culture, different people, different way of doing things. That was always really funny, and working in Egypt is full of challenges. Some of them are big issues, about the building, about the costs, about the construction. Some of them are very small, and I think it's often, when we were working down there, it was often the very, very small problems that were the biggest problems. Just getting simple, small things done in a culture you don't really understand, and finding out how to do that, how to get a piece of paper, how to get something printed, how to get samples or to talk to experts. Those were the challenges that were maybe the most difficult, and certainly the most numerous.
Det var jo mange kulturforskjeller. Det var jo selvfølgelig var en kulturforskjell for oss å komme dit ned og møte Egypt, men vi hadde jo også våre kulturforskjeller. Vi hadde jo partnere som Christoph kom fra Østerrike via Los Angeles, vi hadde Craig og Elaine. Kulturforskjeller som vi hadde innad i Snøhetta, på en måte da. Men selvfølgelig så var det jo også kulturforskjeller når vi kom til Egypt. Og det ene var vel på en måte tempoet, tenker jeg. Det at vi kom dit med en oppgave som vi konsentrerte oss om, og vi hadde et år på oss til å gjøre den prosjekteringen. Mens at de egyptiske arkitektene og ingeniørene som vi jobbet sammen med, de hadde jo dagliglivet sitt der, med barn som skulle på skole, og i barnehage, og fotballtrening, og alt det som dagliglivet da. Sånn at den der forskjellen i tempo var jo litt sånn til gnisning, på en måte. Og så var det vel en gang at det bare rant fullstendig over for Craig. Han bare la seg ned på gulvet og sprella som en 3-åring og sparka og slo med armer og bein og lagde bare et forferdelig spetakkel bare for å få alles oppmerksomhet. Fordi nå må dere høre på meg. Og alle sammen var jo bare helt bestyrt av hva som skjer. En av de her partnerne fra Norge ligger og spreller på gulvet som en liten 3-åring da. Og sånn. Og det skapte jo først bestyrtelse da. Men så ble det jo på en måte noe som man bare kunne le veldig hjertelig av i lang tid etterpå da. Så det skapte jo veldig god stemning da. Og sånne episoder var det en del av. Det var humor som på en måte kunne løfte spente situasjoner da.
Mitt møte med Egypt, for Kjetil og meg var på reise i Egypt, for vi visste at det var noen konkurranse om biblioteket i det hele tatt. Og det var et sterkt møte av min egen historie, min barndom, bibelhistorien, det å komme til Aswan og Luxor og pyramidene var som å gå tilbake til min egen historie, og jeg følte voldsom gjenkjennelse liksom fra første klasse når vi tegnet Moses på Nilen og alle de historiene fra Bibelen. Mens dagens Egypt, altså når vi var der, så følte jeg det litt sånn, jeg skal si, veldig, sånn, kulturen var så annerledes. Altså jeg møtte ikke så mye gjenkjennelse der, det synes jeg var egentlig litt sånn en enorm kultursjokk. Mens Kjetil, han bare elsket dagens Egypt og sa, her vil jeg jobbe. Og etter noen år så kom jo den konkurransen opp, og da var han med en gang dette ville gjøre, og tok kontakt med en studiekamerat, og de bestemte seg for å gjøre konkurransen. Og på det tidspunktet så bodde jo jeg som sagt i Mexico, og de trommet sammen noen folk, og vi møttes i Los Angeles. Mens i Mexico, der hadde jeg jo møtt en voldsom gjenkjennelse i dagens Mexico, og ikke samme gjenkjennelse i indianernes, altså pyramidene og alle de. Jeg elsket det jo, men ikke samme gjenkjennelse. Så det var en spesiell opplevelse egentlig, for der jeg tredde rett inn i dagens Mexico, og følte meg mer hjemme der nesten enn i Norge. Og kulturen, altså det er jo masse blandet med det indianske og det spanske, så det var absolutt gjenkjennelse der. Så det var veldig spennende da å skulle dra til Los Angeles og skulle gjøre denne her konkurransen om gjenreising av biblioteket i Alexandria. Vi hadde ikke vært i Alexandria da før. Vi dro bare fra Kairo oppover mot Abu Simbel. Ja. Nei, men det å bo i Kairo, en gjeng med nordmenn som vi både var sammen og alene, var jo der på egen hånd samtidig som vi hadde den tryggheten med hverandre, var veldig spesielt også. Vi jobbet jo veldig, veldig mye. Så det var liksom frem og tilbake til kontoret, og jeg tenker at mens jeg i Mexico hadde deltatt veldig i hverdagslivet og var alene og jobbet med mine ting, kunsten min, så var jo det sterke i Egypt, var jo det å ha det samarbeidet med forskjellige fag, og egentlig jobbe hele tiden for å skulle få gjennomført dette gigantprosjektet som det var gjenreise biblioteket Alexandria.
I think the pictures from maybe the full-scale prototypes at Emil Borsvik, the furniture producer in Risør, south of Oslo, where we did a lot of tests, and I was there visiting very often to work together with the manufacturers, craftsmen in their workshop. And of course there was a lot of testing, and we did many tests there and at the office at Snøhetta, and of course on site in Alexandria. So there were many visits to different workshops to see to that the furniture was working as we had hoped for.
Men det som var vanskelig var jo å følge opp alle stedene, hvem som skulle passe sammen, og det var jo et stort opplegg med dette vi hadde jo en mal på hver sten da. Hver sten var jo 1 ganger 2 meter og cirka 15 tjukk. Der var det et tyrkisk selskap som hadde hånd om det med mal og montering. Så det var mye sånn samarbeid på tvers av alle veier i dette. Ja, det en ting som det skulle jo skjæres en del da, men man hadde med vinkelsliper. Man måtte bruke vinkelsliper for å komme ned i tegnene. Og så hadde vi med en del masker og sånn da, for at det ikke skulle stå i så mye støv. Men det var jo noe trøblete greier, synes jeg, gutter da. Så kjøpte fine masker som havnet hjemme hos mor og far i stedet for. Så jeg husker jo liksom hvordan etter hvert som vinteren kom, så ble det jo kaldt. Det blåste jo kaldt da hele tiden. Så etter hvert så muret de jo igjen da, tettet igjen, så det ble jo veldig tett med røyk og sånn da. Det husker jeg det var litt vanskelig det med det støvet, at jeg fikk litt dårlig samvittighet når jeg gikk der.
Ja, altså det å jobbe i team var en enormt fin opplevelse for meg som kunstner. Og jeg så jo at der hadde jeg noe energi som jeg ikke hadde opplevd når jeg jobbet alene. Det ga meg voldsomt mye kraft, det å skulle kreere noe sammen med andre. Det kjenner jeg at jeg må hele tiden tilbake oss til. Jobbe sammen mot et mål, og så gjøre det sammen. Der har jeg uante krefter, føler jeg. Jeg kan ha litt mer problemer med å finne kreativitet når jeg er alene, så der må jeg jobbe liksom dypere, kan du si. Så jeg er veldig glad i å jobbe i team.
Just being there for some hours that we were last trip, seeing it being used now, seeing, first of all, arriving early in the morning, really quite early in the morning, and the queues outside. I've never seen a library that has queues outside. You're queuing up, standing in line to get in. That's quite exceptional. Early in the morning. 2 queues, of course, men, women, equally long. Surprised me a little bit. I thought there would be more women, less men, but no, actually the same. Inside, people using the space not as a conventional library necessarily. They're in groups, they're in twos, or they're alone. Some people actually sleeping there. It's also okay. Work a bit, sleep a bit, enjoy the space. Everyone really enjoying the space, the big space, and that's what's really special about Alexandria. It is the big space. It's bigger than a normal room. It's bigger than itself, is what we would say. It's more of a landscape. You can look in a long distance, focus on the far away things. And that's what really then helps your imagination to work when you're focusing a long way away. But this combination of all ages, all types of people, using it in very, very different ways. It's a social space. It's not a private space. It's really a genuine public space.
Again, many people were really, really nice and excellent architects and landscape architects and artists. So I worked on the project for 13 years. 13 years is a long time because I continued also to work with the interiors and the furniture project. But especially when the tender drawings were supposed to be delivered, it was an amazing task. And we had Craig Dykers with his red pen, correcting every drawing and hundreds of drawings. He was there on his big table with his red pen. A really amazing and honestly a very boring job, but he did an amazing job correcting drawings in the latest phase of but there's so many stories like that. But I think on the team, Craig was really, really amazing.
First time we were introduced to the World Wide Web was in Egypt. And one of the guys had some connections at a university in the States. And I think it was through that university that we had this, suddenly at the end of the project, we had a line, we managed to send each other or send some messages from one of the computers to the other computer. And we also managed to look into a product online file. Of course, we did lots of product searches, and suddenly we were waiting, and suddenly, this page opened, and we could search for some kind of maybe insulation material that they sell in the States, and it was just so amazing. This is the future, maybe. You never knew. It could be just a flop, but, well, it wasn't a flop. And we were not able to send a single of those drawings until we came back to Norway. And I remember very well the first drawing we sent from regarding the library project. I think it was sent overnight. It took hours to send one drawing through the World Wide Web.
It's one of those projects that really does make me happy, and I think that's important. Architecture moves from being in your head, in your mind, in your imagination, onto paper, and then it gets built. And what is beautiful about architecture is when it's built, it's a building, it's full of people. And only then does it become architecture. And to go back to the library, we did it just recently, 6 months ago, the anniversary, and to see that full of people, all sorts of people, young people, old people, men, women, all sorts of people, everyone really using the space, enjoying the space, using it in different ways. Some are sleeping, happens in libraries. Some are chatting, some are sending messages, some people even reading. That makes me really happy. And then to talk to the people who work there, who run the place, who look after it, and experience that emotion, that emotional attachment that they have to this building, these walls, these bricks, these floors, these beams. It becomes more than just a structure. It becomes what architecture really is. It's a spiritual place that people make in their lives as they use it. That makes me really happy.
This is a kind of once-in-a-lifetime project. It's not very often that a newly graduated furniture designer gets this kind of opportunity. It was a big project, a significant one, and it was an honor to be part of. And of course, I learned a lot working together with the furniture manufacturer, the subcontractors, visiting producers, traveling abroad to visit other libraries to see how they had managed with a similar scope. And then the project also got a lot of attention both nationally and internationally. I was invited to many exhibitions. I was interviewed in magazines and newspapers. I also received a design award for the most talented young designer. So you can say that it kickstarted my career as a furniture designer.